Hello everybody, welcome back. I just posted that little baby goat video. I hope you like it. It's not too far from here. I wanted to go to Lexington and just do a quick video before I go out to the ranch. I'm at the ranch on Fridays to Monday or Sunday evening. I just was doing a little work, and this is going to be an off-the-cuff video. I wanted to go down by the Lexington, closer, but they got all the construction. They messed up. That's all. I could preach a whole 30 minutes on the construction things they do in the city here. So anyway, I'm a little up from the Lexington, but right by the water. I think I figured out a way that when it's windy, I can do it. I got my camera phone kind of right next to one of the steps, and that kind of blocks maybe some of the sound. I just want to do some ramblings. I cover stuff in some of these unscripted teachings. Yesterday, I printed some of my posts on addiction recovery, and I printed them for some of the guys. I'm always working with guys, no matter what. And even if I disassociate, not being mean, but if some of my friends that I'm not doing ministry with, there are reasons, because some of the guys, I love them all. Many of them were involved in meth addiction, and I think I just saw one ride by. It looked like him. Some of those guys got clean, which is really good. But if they want to do ministry, being just clean from meth or beer or whatever isn't just enough if you want to do ministry. And the main problem I'm seeing, and I just had another friend I was with yesterday who wanted to do some stuff, and I might work with them. But these guys are sleeping around with a lot of people. And that's, if you struggle with that, if you're not in concern with ministry and you're just concerned with, doing the AA or whatever, it's your prerogative. But if you want to do Christian ministry, you can't be sleeping around with a lot of people. I'm making a video. I'm not talking to myself. People see me sitting there, they think I'm nuts. So anyway, that's why you see some of the things that, and I made a short printed version of my teaching on Christian addiction from recovery. And when I say Christian recovery from addiction, I'm talking about these issues, because that's the main thing. But let me, I'm going through some courses. These are free courseware. I want to commend all the Yale University, MIT. The last few years, some of these great notable universities began videotaping or audio taping their classes and offering them online free. That's really noble to do. And I have a system, a Roku system, where you just get them online, but you have them hooked up to my big screen TV. And in the past, I bought some of these on CDs and stuff, these types of courses from the Great Courses. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you can order a lot of the university stuff from the Great Courses. But being I got the Roku system, I'm just getting them right from the internet and watching them on the TV. And I just finished the one you heard me talking about on the video on New Testament, done by a kind of liberal, higher critic guy. But I'm going through a couple of them. I'm doing one on the Roman Empire, excellent course. One on Greek, early ancient Greek history. And I want to say, I'm not going to be a critic of these wonderful university scholars. And when you take Greek history, Roman history, these are Yale courses, they are impacted with Christian theology teaching. And I've said this, I said, anybody that studies world history, you will not escape the reality of the controversies that went on in the church, Christianity. It's embedded. And these courses out of Yale, I've done some from MIT and others, same thing. And you could even hear these university professors saying, this course is not considered theology or Christianity, but we have to cover these issues because they play such a vital role. But I find it interesting, the one on Greek, ancient Greek history I finished that one actually. I like them, but sometimes you'll see things that you'll notice that maybe they don't get right, and I don't want to be a critic here, but one of the most interesting parts of the ancient Greek history course was the polis, the development of the polis. The polis is the ancient city-states that developed in the Greek culture. And they were unique in the sense that they were an experiment of democracy. And these city-states were ruled, the citizenship ruled the city-states. Now you'll learn this when I was doing some of my philosophy posts. You might have heard me talk about how Aristotle and Plato and these guys, some of them were critical of the democracy. They felt like the term is the philosopher kings, and some of the great philosophers 400 or 500 years BC, the polis, the city-states, developed actually before that, but some of the philosophers were critical of democracy because they said we should have the real smart people running the show instead of just everybody. But I mention that because the polis, P-O-L-I-S, ancient Greek city-states, the instructor, he was very knowledgeable, even in Christianity. He said one of the unique things that he found was there was no other experiment that they could find in history. Oh, look, I've got a boat coming in the back. I don't know if you can see it. I think you can. But actually, there was an experiment in a sort of democratic citizenship running itself. And where is it? It's a historical experiment that took place. And it was in Judaism. You see, this is what's funny. Judaism, the prophets you read about in the Old Testament, the Torah, the Old Testament, they had monotheism. Some of the courses will say that the ancient Greek philosophers, particularly Aristotle, when you study philosophy, they'll say they developed the monotheism, which is a belief in one God, and some of these courses will say it was unique because you did not have a monotheistic belief until the times of Aristotle. No, you had monotheism historically before the Greeks. You had it in the Jewish culture that's known for monotheism. Many of the divisions we're going to talk about in the history of Christianity deal with the divisions that occurred because of monotheism. The rise of Islam in the 7th century, the criticism of the church by Islam, by Muhammad, was on this very thing. Islam said we are returning to monotheism, and that the Christian church, because of its view of the Trinity, they believed rejected monotheism. Now, I don't believe in that, but I'm just saying the idea of monotheism did not arise from Aristotle. It came out of the Jewish tradition, the Old Testament, the Torah. The same thing with the polis. You had the original establishment of the Jewish people. I'm going to talk a little, we're going to ramble today, but this should be beneficial. And it should help in our study of Hebrews. I've got to see how long we're going to go. But when God established Israel as a people, as a nation, in the Old Testament, we read the history, a few thousand years before the time of Christ, predating the philosophers and the Greek culture, Alexander the Great, all of this, God established them sort of like a polis, okay? Meaning they had no king. And in the Old Testament book of Judges, you read how God raised up judges and prophets that were sort of influential voices in the community, okay, of the Jewish people. And at one point we read about in the Old Testament, those who study Old Testament history, the people wanted a king. They said, we want a king like all the other nations. See, they were distinct. They were a polis before the polis. So I have to correct my wonderful Yale instructor on the polis. They had a polis. They had rule, and you could say it was ruled by God. That was the intent, but there was no monarch. There was no actual physical king that was ruling them, though the other nations around them did have kings. And in the history of Israel, we read about this in the story of Samuel the prophet. the people wanted a king. They said, now we want a king. We don't want to be a polis anymore. We don't want to be ruled by God with no actual monarch governing us. We want a king. And then they got King Saul, and God told them they reject. God said to Samuel, the people rejected me because now they want an actual physical king. Now, I'm not doing Old Testament history here, but I'm saying it's interesting because, and even the Greek scholar guy who's teaching this course, I forget his name, he's very well versed in the Old Testament because he brings it up. I'm sure he's a Christian man. And so you find mistakes. You know, I've talked to some of my friends at different coffee shops and all, and these kids are taking university courses. And when I get into apologetics and physics and all these issues, I try to tell some of them. I said, you know, guys, when we're talking dark matter, dark energy, all these things are wonderful things, physics. I said, you know, we have not discovered it yet. We have not detected it yet. And they cannot believe that I'm saying that. And I try to tell them, looks like one of my homeless friends, I try to tell them, no, I'm not telling you this, guys, from a Christian view. I read physics, I read science. I said, we've not discovered it yet. Just last week, I read an article in the paper, and it was the AP, Reuters, or whatever. It wasn't, you know, just some Christian magazine. And it talked about they're getting the Hadron Collider back up, which is the giant atom smasher under the ground. I think Switzerland, France, it's built under the ground. And in the article it said, hopefully when they repair the collider, it had problems, it's been having problems, they're going to go ahead and do one of the tests and they can smash the atoms, the particles, subatomic particles at such a high speed. It said, the article said that hopefully they will be able to detect dark matter and dark energy. And the article itself said, which has not been detected as of yet. Which is what I've been saying. We've not detected it. The reason I bring these, I got into a debate with a physicist online a few years ago. And I'm not a physicist and I'm not bragging, but he was saying in one of the debates that we have scientific proof that something can come from nothing. It's the big debate that people are trying to say. If they can prove something comes from nothing, then the atheistic argument could win, because you could say it all came from nothing, which is impossible. But some argue from a particular scientific experiment or observation, which is called the quantum leap. I won't do it all now, but some scientists, particularly atheistic scientists, some have said the quantum leap proves that something comes from nothing. But it doesn't. The quantum leap shows that supposedly a particle disappears and reappears at the same time it disappears. And this is a phenomenon that we do observe. It does happen. It disappears one spot and simultaneously, is the word they use, reappears somewhere else, and there's no explanation for that. Now, some said when they observed this, the quantum leap, some said that's proof. But they were wrong. And science, modern physics now will tell you that that is wrong. Why? Any observations we make in physics, anywhere, oh, something just went off. Any observations we make in physics, anywhere, I think it's recording still, we're making those observations in the known material universe, okay? Which means this: if we do any observations anywhere, it's already being done in the fabric of matter, okay? It's hard, might be hard to understand that. But when that observation of the quantum leap was made, in order for that observation to have actually been legitimate to prove that something comes from nothing, it couldn't have been made in the known universe, because the known universe is already existing, okay? It's already matter, right? So if you wanted to have an observation of something coming from nothing, you would have to find a pristine environment somewhere in the universe where there is nothing, meaning there's no universe. What would happen if you found that spot? We found a spot. There's nothing. As soon as you found it, it's something because you observed it. So really, I'm not getting into semantics here. I'm just saying there's a lot that goes on and people are not aware. And the course I'm doing on the Roman Empire, and this one is really, impacted with a lot of theology because you're dealing with a lot. Constantine in the 4th century makes the Edict of Constantine. I think it's 313 AD. Christianity becomes the religion of the empire. Roman Empire collapses in the 5th century, but it survives in the Byzantine Empire all the way in the east part of the empire. The Roman Empire was divided between two, east and west, and in the early first 5 centuries, the Western Empire expanded itself very far, a lot of territory, and over time the invasions and the hordes, and they collapsed, but the Eastern Empire would survive. As a matter of fact, in Revelation, it talks about certain emperors, Roman emperors and all, that would be very wicked and attack Christians, attack the church. And there's different, it doesn't give the exact names of them, but most of us realize Nero was very bad. One that was very bad, persecution, great persecutions against the church, was Diocletian. Diocletian was right before Constantine, right in the beginning of the 4th century, 300 AD time. But he was a wicked emperor. Really, one of the great persecutions comes from him. And then right after him is Constantine, and Constantine becomes the one who makes Christianity the realm of the religion of the empire. And let me just put a side note. Some people say Constantine did that in order for a political reason to make Christianity. Really, it wouldn't favor him to have done that, because at that time, the early Christians, they still observed the teachings of Christ in such a way where some were pacifists, some believed you should not fight, you should not war. Most of the historical, document would say it wasn't favorable for Constantine to have converted to Christianity, because the Roman army, who he was in charge of, it wouldn't really benefit. So I think he had a real conversion, more than likely. There's questions about some of the things. But Diocletian, right before Constantine, he instituted certain political reforms. And it's interesting because those reforms lasted in the Eastern Empire, which is the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, the capital, I've taught this in the past, which is modern-day Istanbul, Turkey. But they lasted all the way for about 1,200 years until the fall of the Eastern Empire, which took place in the 1400s. I was teaching the Renaissance, I mentioned this, under the Ottomans. Constantinople did collapse. But anyway, Diocletian instituted some reforms that lasted all that way. But in the course I'm taking from this guy, also very well educated, there are also some things that if you omit the history of Israel, which is documented history, and the history that we read about in Israel, which is in the Old Testament, the nation of Israel, then you'll have a lot of mistakes. And these men, I think sometimes when they talk about what's happening in the Roman Empire, and some will say, this was unique, we didn't find it in any other group, and most of the times you found it in other groups, okay? And even when you debate in the field of philosophy, the same thing will happen. Some will say, well, the first idea came up with the Greek philosophers, the pre-Socratic, or whoever it was. No, a lot of times those ideas originated in the Jewish prophets. And I just found it interesting. Now, some of the stuff we're going to do in Hebrews. Hopefully the next video will be Hebrews. What we're going to deal with is the nature of the church. This is called ecclesiology. Okay, the Greek word in the New Testament, this is actually came up in some of the different, the polos was just a word also for community, citizenship. So in the New Testament, the Greek word is ecclesia. But the reason we're going to get into this is, if we understand the nature of the church, I had a talk with somebody yesterday. I said, A lot of things that ministries do, trying to start ministries and all, we apply verses in the Old Testament, Malachi, bring all the tithes into the storehouse, and if you do not bring the tithes into the storehouse, a curse is going to come upon you. Now look, I'm going to be merciful, but that, if you use that totally out of context, and you use it today, talking to Christians in Sunday meeting, which is okay, that's very abusive to use that. Why? Because the tithe in the Old Testament, this is just learning history. The tithe was really an income tax, and it wasn't even a 10%. There were 3 tithes, came to like 27% of total income, but it was really sort of an income tax for the nation of Israel. And the storehouse was a room in the temple, and that was the actual place, and it provided for the funding of the Levitical priests, the Levites. This is why Hebrews is going to be important, because in Hebrews we're going to understand we are not under a Levitical priesthood. We're under the priesthood of Jesus. It's going to be referred to as the Melchizedek priesthood from the tribe of Judah. So these themes alone, which are major themes, kind of would show you why Christians are not under the tithe. Because the Levitical law, you wouldn't appeal to that. Paul was writing to churches in the New Testament, you've been seeing me teach this, that they're not under the law. But the verse in Malachi that says, bring all the tithes into the storehouse because you're robbing God, you can't apply that to the concept of local church. That was talking about the temple, and it was, so in the New Testament, the ecclesia, the church, the ecclesia, or the polis, if you will, they're the people of God. So the way you would maybe apply the tithe, you would say that our money should go to meet the needs of the community, the people of God. That would be a better way. In the letters I'm teaching in the New Testament right now, we did Romans, doing Hebrews. You'll notice that when it's talking about finances, there's no teaching about a big financial harvest. We're all going to get rich and receive the Abrahamic blessing and all that. It's talking about giving to the needs of people, supporting the pastors or elders who are working among you, meeting their needs as well. All that's legitimate. But as you get things in context, that's where things fit. So I did this short video. It's not, no particular subject, but I want you to get a feel for where we're going to head down the future. Hopefully the next video will be Hebrews, the next section we're going to do. But when we read, what I'm trying to do in these letters of the New Testament, when I do Romans, when I do Hebrews, I'm trying, there's a lot of good Christians that go to church for many years, and the primary way they're learning the New Testament or Christianity is through sermons. And sermons developed, I can tell you how they developed, but sermons became something that you have points, 5 points, 4 points. You make, a lot of times you don't really learn the New Testament that way. Now, everyone that does sermons is not bad, so many are good, but because a lot of the way sermons are done is a point here, a point there, verse here, verse there, it is easy to get off track. One of the things that was restored at the time of the Reformation, I teach Reformation history, which is in the 16th century, was what we called the perspicuity of Scripture. Basically, it meant their ancient church fathers developed a way that each verse, each scripture had like 3 or 4 different meanings, and some were losing the plain meaning of scripture. So something that was restored at the time of the Protestant Reformation was the plain meaning of scripture. That is, when you read it, God will speak to us. He can give us a verse and show us a certain thing, but don't be looking for all types of out of context meanings to these verses, okay? And so when a lot of modern Christians, meaning well, it would do them good just to go through one of my teachings I'm giving you guys. These are all free. You just sit down, take the thing I did on Romans. I'm adding a lot of history into these teachings. I'm giving you foundational stuff. These are all Catholic Protestants would have no problem using these if you're doing a little home Bible study, home group. I'm sitting here today on, I'm getting ready to go on another trip somewhere, because I'm settling some things. I think most of the stuff I was deciding on is probably decided on. I still get with the guys. I still, you see that in the last video I posted, that I'm still working with the guys. I'm more strict. I'm letting them know, if you want to keep doing stuff, guys, you can't, be going out using, stealing, sleeping around. That's got to stop. If you want to be part of the community, of the Christian community, everybody that's seeing these videos, wherever you're at, North Bergen, friends in many cities here, many years, Bishop, Kingsville. Look at these meetings, these videos. Like I said, this is our central location. Instead of me, San Antonio, instead of me driving all over, I'm going to do these like we've been doing. Sit down. If you got your own group going on your own, some of the guys talked about keeping the groups going on their own. If you do your own group on your own, anywhere, San Antonio, Larry, David, Kingsville, or anyone in North Bergen, if you got one and you use these videos, I'll come and do something. I'll do the next one we do a series, I'll do them in the meeting. But the main thing I wanted to get away from was me taking everybody all over the place. We're going all over South Texas. I'm still active. And let me make a note here. You notice I say I used to help with the halfway house. John, did you quit the halfway house? No, I didn't. What happened was I was helping a friend for many years, and I told him over time that this is your baby, this is your ministry. I'm here helping you. And there were times where I was the only one doing it. That is the meetings with the guys. I'd go over at times the guys in the halfway house would say, John, we're going to start paying the rent to you because we can't trust paying the rent to the other person. There's problems. So there was some problems like that. And I told the guys, I don't want to be collecting the rent. I didn't take money from that ministry. My friend, though, did support himself through it, used the money as income. He let me know, we worked in partnership. I was like the pastor for the halfway house. So there were problems. I knew there were problems. And I would tell the guys, look, I'm not going to, they would say, maybe you're going to run it. You'll be in charge, because they saw me as the spiritual leader there. I said, that's not my calling to do that. I'm here to assist. And the main reason, some of the posts you'll see in the last post I posted just today, this video will go up maybe Monday. Some of those posts I individually gave to my friend, saying this is stuff we need to kind of abide by if we're going to do Christian ministry. So I told some of my friends, I told the friend I do the ministry with, I told his brother, I said, I've known you guys for a long time, and I'm letting you know, I said, I wouldn't even been helping here. It's just I knew your brother for a long time, and he was on the streets as a meth addict for many years, and he got clean from meth. I said, so I was having problems even beginning helping him with this, but I said, we'll give it some time. I want my friend to do well, and I'm going to text him maybe this week. I want him to give his testimony on video, and I'll post that. You'll hear his testimony. I've told it many times. It's really a great story. So those are some of the little adjustments you've seen us make. Let's see. The great philosopher, guess who it is? I'm not going to give you the name. All the world's a stage, and we are merely players, performers, and portrayers, each one another's audience in the gilded cage. You figure that one out. God bless. Here's where we took the video. That's the Lexington down there. And beautiful day. Downtown Corpus. I'm heading to the ranch. God bless.